Ladies and gentlemen, we are creatures of connection, bound by invisible threads to those we love, those we admire, and those we've allowed into our hearts. But what happens when these connections begin to suffocate us, when they limit our growth, or when the bond no longer serves our highest good? What happens when it's time to let go? The first step in letting go of people is understanding the nature of attachment. We all form attachments, whether they are to people, places, or ideas. We cling to them, hoping that by holding on tightly, we can find security or permanence. But in this act of attachment, we often forget that everything in life is in a constant state of change. We grasp at people as if they are objects that we can control, not realizing that by doing so, we tether ourselves to suffering. The more tightly we hold, the more we lose our freedom to grow, to explore, and to evolve. When we understand the impermanence of all things, we can begin to loosen our grip and allow life to flow as it naturally will. Once we realize the transient nature of life, we can begin to embrace change as a natural flow. People change, we change. Relationships shift and evolve, and if we are not careful, we find ourselves clinging to an outdated version of someone or something. Change is not something to fear or resist, it is the very essence of life itself. The seasons change, the tides rise and fall, and so do the people who come and go in our lives. To hold on to what was or what could have been is to live in a state of perpetual dissonance with the natural order of things. Instead, we must learn to flow with life, to honor what is past, and to welcome the new and unknown with open arms. Another essential element in letting go is releasing the need for control. Many of us try to control the people around us, hoping to mold them into our expectations, or to steer them down a path we have mapped out for them. But here's the truth: we cannot control another person. No matter how much we may try, we cannot shape their thoughts, their emotions, or their actions. All we can control is our own response. By releasing the desire to control others, we free ourselves from the exhausting cycle of manipulation, frustration, and resentment. We begin to honor others' autonomy, understanding that each individual is on their own journey. In releasing control, we regain the power to shape our own lives and to move forward with grace. To truly let go, we must also cultivate self-love and inner peace. Far too often we look to others for validation, for love, for approval. But in doing so, we give away our power. We hand over the responsibility for our happiness to someone outside of ourselves. The key to freedom is understanding that our worth is not tied to the people around us. It resides within us in the very essence of who we are. When we begin to nurture ourselves, to love ourselves unconditionally, we free ourselves from the need for others to fill that void. Only when we are at peace with ourselves can we let go of others without fear or resentment. Finally, when it comes time to let go, we must honor the past and embrace the present. Every relationship, no matter how fleeting, has taught us something valuable. Perhaps it has shown us what we want in the future, or what we need to heal within ourselves. By holding on to the past, we deny ourselves the opportunity to live fully in the present. It's important to acknowledge what has been, to express gratitude for the lessons, and then to release the emotional baggage we've accumulated. The past is gone, and it cannot be rewritten. What we have now is the present, and it is full of limitless possibilities. By letting go of what no longer serves us, we create space for new experiences, new connections, and new growth. Letting go is not an act of abandonment or neglect, it is an act of wisdom. It is the recognition that in order to grow, we must be willing to release the old and make room for the new. In letting go of people, we are not denying the love or the connection we once shared, but rather we are allowing both ourselves and them to evolve in the ways we are meant to. So let go with love, with grace, and with trust that everything that is meant for you will find its way to you. Attachment is a powerful force in our lives, shaping our relationships, our emotions, and even our sense of self. It begins innocently enough. Our connections with people, places, and experiences become intertwined with our identities. We think we need them, and in turn they come to define who we are. But here's the paradox: the more we attach ourselves to something or someone, the more we risk limiting our freedom, our growth, and our peace of mind. Attachment often manifests as a desire to hold on, to possess, and to ensure that the things we care about stay exactly as they are, fixed in time, unchanging. We cling to the familiar, as though somehow, if we just hold on tightly enough, we can prevent the inevitable currents of life from sweeping us away. Yet life is a river, constantly flowing, shifting and reshaping itself, and attachment to things that are meant to change creates friction with the natural order of the universe. At its core, attachment is born of fear. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of not being enough or not having enough. It creates a false sense of security, convincing us that we can control the outcome if we just hold on tightly enough. But in reality, it only deepens the suffering we experience. When we attach ourselves too strongly to an outcome or a person, we begin to equate our happiness and sense of well-being with the existence of that particular relationship, possession, or idea. Our happiness becomes dependent on something external, something that is always in flux. And so when that attachment is challenged, when change comes, when people leave, or when the future takes a turn we didn't expect, our sense of self is shaken to its core. We feel lost, vulnerable, and uncertain. The nature of attachment also brings us into conflict with our own inner nature. The truth is, we are not meant to be static. We are meant to evolve, to grow, to experience new things, and to learn from them. Holding on too tightly to anything, whether it's a person, a job, a material possession, or even an idea, restricts the flow of this natural evolution. When we become overly attached, we start to fight against the forces of change that are constantly at play in our lives. We stop moving forward because we're too focused on what we think we cannot live without. We lose sight of the fact that in every ending there is a beginning. In every loss there is an opportunity for growth. The first step to freeing ourselves from the grip of attachment is simply understanding that it is an illusion of security. We are not our relationships. We are not our possessions. We are not our possessions. We are not the sum of our past experiences. We are, instead, fluid beings constantly being shaped by the present moment. True peace and freedom come from recognizing that we are the creators of our own happiness, and that nothing and no one outside of us has the power to define our worth. When we let go of the need to attach, we begin to uncover the truth of who we are, untethered, unshackled, and infinitely capable of navigating life with resilience and grace. Understanding attachment also means acknowledging that it doesn't diminish our love or respect for others. It simply frees us from the chains that bind us to unrealistic expectations. We can love deeply and freely, but without the need to control or possess. We can cherish experiences without living in the past. We can create meaningful connections without fearing their eventual transformation. In truth, it is only when we release the grip of attachment that we allow ourselves the opportunity to fully embrace the flow of life in all its complexity, its beauty, and its unpredictability. The nature of attachment is both a teacher and a challenge. It shows us where we are clinging to false securities and where we need to let go in order to make room for deeper, more authentic growth. Through this understanding, we begin to see that letting go is not a loss. It is an invitation to live more fully, to trust more deeply, and to experience life's wonders in their fullest expression. When we begin to loosen our grip, we allow ourselves to dance with life in a way that we never could while tightly holding on. The choice always is ours to continue to attach, or to learn the art of release and discover the freedom that awaits on the other side. Change, my friends, is the fundamental rhythm of life itself. It's easy to fall into the illusion that life should stay the same, that the path we've carved should remain untouched, predictable, and secure. We build routines, we cling to habits, and we define ourselves by the things that are familiar. But the truth is, life has its own design, a design that is fluid, dynamic, and constantly evolving. And it's in our willingness to embrace this change that we unlock our greatest potential. You see, everything around us is in a state of flux. The seasons shift, the tides of the ocean move in and out, and even the stars above us are not fixed in their place. The world is not static. It is constantly growing, expanding, and transforming. And if we truly understand the nature of this existence, we recognize that to resist change is to resist life itself. We can choose to fight against the current, but we must understand that the current will always move forward, whether we swim with it or against it. The only way to move forward with ease is to flow with the current, to release our resistance, and to trust that every moment is unfolding exactly as it should. When we embrace change as a natural flow, we begin to see that it's not something to fear, but something to welcome. Change is not a disruption, it is an invitation. It invites us to grow, to evolve, to expand beyond the narrow confines we've created for ourselves. We often resist because we fear the unknown, but the unknown is where growth happens. It is where new possibilities are born. If we keep ourselves anchored in the past, in what we've already done, we close ourselves off to the opportunities that lie ahead. Growth doesn't happen by staying stagnant. It happens by stepping into the new, by pushing beyond the boundaries we've set for ourselves, and by allowing ourselves to be transformed by the experiences that come our way. Think about the times in your life when change has come, often uninvited, and you resisted it at first. Maybe you faced a job loss, the end of a relationship, or a sudden move. In those moments, change can seem like an enemy. It can feel like the ground is shifting beneath your feet, leaving you unsteady and unsure. But then, over time, you begin to see that the very change you resisted was the catalyst for your growth. You found new strength, you learned things about yourself, and you emerged on the other side with a broader perspective and a deeper understanding of who you are. The change that initially seemed frightening was, in fact, the very force that pushed you to become a better version of yourself. What's important to understand is that we don't need to control change. In fact, trying to control it often leads to frustration and suffering. Change is going to happen, whether we're ready or not. And instead of standing in opposition to it, we must learn to dance with it. We must become partners in this ever-unfolding flow of life. This requires trust. Trust that everything, no matter how challenging it seems in the moment, is part of a greater plan, and that we are exactly where we need to be. When we trust in the flow of life, we stop fighting against it. We stop worrying about what's next, and instead, we become fully present in the now, knowing that whatever comes, we will be equipped to handle it. Embracing change as a natural flow also means understanding that we are not defined by our circumstances. We are not defined by the things that happen to us, but by how we choose to respond. The ability to adapt, to shift our perspective, and to see the opportunities in every situation is what sets us apart. Change is a mirror that reflects who we truly are: the courage, the strength, the resilience that lies within us all. When we allow change to flow through us, we become more connected to our authentic selves, the version of us that is capable of facing anything that life throws our way. And remember, change is not always dramatic. It's not always some huge, earth-shattering event. Sometimes it's the small, quiet shifts that make the greatest difference. The subtle changes in our daily habits, our thinking, or the way we treat others can have an enormous impact over time. Even the smallest movement toward growth, toward greater understanding, or toward a new direction can set us on a path to profound transformation. Embrace those small shifts as part of the flow, and over time they will lead to big results. In the end, embracing change is about seeing life as an unfolding story, one that is constantly evolving, growing, and expanding. Each chapter brings new lessons, new opportunities, and new beginnings. It is not something to fear, but something to anticipate with excitement and gratitude. Change, after all, is the universe's way of telling us that there is more to experience, more to learn, and more to become. So let go of the need to control it. Step into the flow, trust in the process, and allow yourself to be carried to places you've never imagined. The journey is waiting for you, and it's only just begun. There is a quiet, insidious force that many of us carry with us throughout our lives, the need for control. It manifests in a desire to steer the course of events, shape the actions of others, or mold the world around us into a version we believe is ideal. And yet, the more we try to control, the more we become entangled in frustration, fear, and ultimately failure. The truth is, we cannot control everything. We cannot control the thoughts and actions of others. We cannot dictate the timing of life's events. And we cannot prevent the inevitable changes that life will present us with. At the core of this need for control is a fear of the unknown, a fear of uncertainty. We fear that if we let go, things might fall apart, or that we might be left vulnerable, exposed. But in our attempts to hold everything together, we overlook one simple, profound truth. Trying to control everything is the very thing that keeps us stuck. It's as if we're gripping a rope so tightly, terrified to let go. But by holding on, we prevent ourselves from moving forward, from growing, and from experiencing the fullness of life. When we release the need for control, we open ourselves up to freedom. Freedom to be ourselves. Freedom to allow others to be themselves. Freedom to accept life as it is, without trying to bend it to our will. In this space of surrender, we discover that the universe has a way of aligning things in a much greater and more beautiful way than we ever could have imagined. When we stop trying to force outcomes, we begin to notice that life flows more easily, that opportunities unfold without our intervention, and that things often work out in ways that we could not have predicted. This does not mean that we should abandon responsibility or purpose. Rather, it means that we need to recognize what is within our power to change and what is beyond our control. We can control our actions, our attitudes, and our responses, but we cannot control the behavior of others, the course of events, or the timing of life's blessings. When we stop trying to manipulate the world around us, we create space for a deeper connection with it. We can work in harmony with life, rather than struggling against it, trying to force it into a mold that suits our comfort zone. Letting go of control also means embracing the flow of uncertainty. Life is unpredictable. It's a series of unexpected twists and turns. We can either resist this unpredictability, fighting against it with all our might, or we can choose to accept it as an essential part of the journey. By letting go of control, we allow ourselves to step into the unknown with courage and trust. We acknowledge that we cannot see the entire path before us, but we trust that the next step will be revealed when the time is right. And what happens when we let go of control? We begin to experience peace. The anxiety that once consumed us starts to dissipate, because we no longer carry the burden of trying to manage every little detail. We stop worrying about the future, trying to predict what will happen, and start living fully in the present moment. We realize that the present is all we ever truly have, and it's in this moment right here, right now, that life is happening. And when we stop trying to control everything, we can finally experience the beauty of what is, rather than constantly yearning for what could be. In releasing the need for control, we rediscover the joy of living. We find that life in its raw, unfiltered form is far more rich, far more meaningful, and far more wondrous than we could have ever imagined when we were busy trying to control every outcome. The world is full of endless possibilities, and by letting go, we step into those possibilities with open hands, ready to receive whatever comes next. To truly cultivate self-love and inner peace, we must first understand that both are not mere ideals or goals to be achieved, but practices, living, breathing acts that we engage in every day. Self-love is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And yet for many of us it remains one of the most difficult things to embrace. We've been conditioned to seek love externally, to depend on others to validate our worth, and to find fulfillment in external achievements. But in doing so, we unknowingly give away our power and in turn set ourselves up for a lifetime of frustration and discontent. The reality is that until we learn to love ourselves, the world cannot offer us a love that truly satisfies. Self-love begins with acceptance. It is about acknowledging who you are, both your strengths and your flaws, and understanding that you are worthy of love in spite of your imperfections. Many of us carry around a belief that we need to be perfect before we can love ourselves, but perfection is a myth. The human experience is messy, full of contradictions, and often complicated. But within that complexity lies beauty. When we accept ourselves as we are without judgment, without shame, without fear, we unlock the door to peace. It is only by embracing our imperfections that we find the freedom to grow. And in that growth we find the deepest kind of love, the kind that is unconditional, unshakable, and limitless. Cultivating self-love and inner peace is not a destination but a journey that requires patience, dedication, and a willingness to embrace who we truly are, flaws and all. It is an ongoing practice of accepting ourselves, setting boundaries, forgiving our past, and finding stillness in the present moment. As we commit to this path, we not only unlock the deep reservoir of love and peace within us, but also create a ripple effect that touches every aspect of our lives. When we love ourselves fully, without conditions, we begin to radiate that love outward, transforming not only our own lives, but the world around us. So let us begin today with small intentional steps to love ourselves more deeply and to embrace the peace that resides within us. For when we cultivate self-love and inner peace, we find the strength to face life's challenges with grace, the wisdom to navigate its complexities, and the joy that comes from simply being at home within ourselves.